If you're listening, whoa.
4:36 on TSN 690. It's Game Points with Matthew Ross. We're here until 6 o'clock. You got Portugal and USA coming up, World Cup action just after 6. Still to come on our program tonight, Ray Kalari, scout for the San Francisco Giants on MLB. We'll talk tennis with Lyra Pappen of Score Mobile, and a special compilation, some audio from the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, Tim Wallach, Dave Van Horn, etc. But right now, time to talk to our favorite blue blood in Toronto. He is a host on Mako and Cauz in the morning, 9 a.m. on TSN 1050. You can also check him out on CFL.ca and follow him on Twitter.com/mcauz56. It is Matt Cauz, the blue blood. How you doing?
It would be bad of me to admit where I am right now if I wanted to dispel this blue blood term that you guys are giving me.
All right, well, where are you, Matt?
I am standing on the deck of my cottage overlooking Lake Muskoka right now.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
Blue blood. Here we go.
Now, Matt, as everybody wants to know, forget the CFL stuff.
Yeah.
You know, forget the Blue Jays' big injuries today. This is what we need to know is how you did on your wine test.
You know what? I feel really good about it. I don't find out till August. The theory, the 3-hour theory exam, I crushed. Absolutely nailed it. I was like the opposite of a Toronto Blue Jays pitcher. The tasting started a little shaky, got better as I went along, and I know I got most of the wines right. So I feel very good about the theory. I feel iffy about the tasting, but I think when you put it together, I feel like I passed.
All right, well, unless we're going to start wearing powdered wigs, I think we can lower the music at this point.
No. You got to get some Doc Rock. I want some horrible Kim Mitchell or something.
Oh, patio lanterns. My wife would shoot me if that happened.
God, he stinks.
All right, Matt, big injuries today to the Blue Jays. Jose Bautista leaves with a leg injury. They'll have an MRI on him tomorrow. Brett Lawrie hurt again. Unbelievable. Finally having a good year, a healthy year, and a broken finger. He's going to be gone for a while.
Yeah, and it was, I believe, the third time now that Brett Laurie's been hit in the hand recently. And you're right. And losing him in the lineup, offensively, well, he hasn't been that good. It's not bad power, but his average stinks. But defensively has been unbelievable for the Blue Jays this year. A real solidifying force at third base. And, you know, when he played second, played fairly well. And then losing Bautista, though, that's the big one because, as you just mentioned, we're not going to know until tomorrow after the MRI. It started. He got aggravated when he laid down actually a pretty successful bunt against the Reds today. But, I mean, that's a big one because what's hurt Toronto during this losing streak? It's part been the pitchers not being able to go deep enough, and the offense has been up and down. I know it was great on Friday night in that crazy game against the Reds, but the offense has been what's killing them.
In terms of Bautista, we don't know, like you said. Could just be a day or two. So
it could be, but I'm negative right now. You see, like 2 weeks ago, I was positive.
Yeah.
Now I'm negative. And you know what? Actually, if we can go on, just a quick little rant here.
Yeah.
And I'll get your take on this. Is baseball the only sport where we're not allowed to have any emotion?
Do tell.
Well, if the team's doing bad and I complain about it, people are like, oh, it's a long season. What are you doing? 2 weeks ago, you were happy. I'm like, yeah, 2 weeks ago I was happy. Now I'm sad. I'm not allowed to own any of my emotion because it's 162 games.
Yeah.
It feels like it's not until game 160
Yeah.
until you're allowed to actually show some emotion of what happened.
Right. Everyone wants you to kind of be sort of calm and composed and robotic until September.
It's a marathon, Matt. Don't kid yourself. I like when they do that. Don't kid yourself. Yeah, because that's what I spend my time doing. But it's the one sport. I'm not allowed to have any emotion.
Well, on our show, you're allowed, sir.
Good. Well, I'm angry. I'm pissed off. The 2-3 of the Cincinnati getting swept by the Yankees should have. In the game they won, I had fallen asleep. I didn't even get to see the comeback. I fell asleep.
Oh, come on. Really?
It was 9-9, and I'm up at the cottage, and you have a lot of food, you have a little wine, and you're relaxed, and you're staring at water. You can't stay awake that late. No one can.
Well, you look at the standings, and the Jays are a game up on New York right now, 2 up on Baltimore. Red Sox are playing right now; they're 7 back, but they just can't win a game more than a couple in a row. But they're still in a decent position. Even if they go on a bit of a slide, they'll get Lawrie back at some point. And
I know. Listen, here's the thing: it's a good thing that we're upset, even though the team is in first place.
Yeah.
That means our expectations have been raised. If your expectations are getting raised, that means the team is playing well. So big picture, it's actually good to be angry right now. And eventually Lawrie comes back, and hopefully Bautista, it's nothing bad, because we've seen Bautista miss 50, 60 games before with the Blue Jays. But the bigger question is, what's Anthopoulos going to do?
Yeah.
This is not – they don't have a number one. They don't have a number one pitcher. And I don't know if they can get one, but can they get, a solid number 3? Can Toronto make it to the playoffs with a bunch of 2s and some 3s? That's the question, and that's the one that everyone's wondering about with Anthopoulos and with management.
Things could be worse, Matt. You could be a Royals fan who won, a crazy 10 games in a row, sweeping the Tigers, getting in the first place, and then they lose 3 in a row, and they're back down a game and a half.
Yeah, well, first off, it's Kansas City. Every year, or every couple of years, we expect, their young guys are gonna really perform, and then they never do. And eventually, in the Central, aren't we just waiting until eventually when Detroit runs away with it? They're a game and a half up, but we're all just sort of waiting for that to happen.
Yeah, I think so as well. They'll go on a bit of a run. They're doing this. They're in first place right now with Verlander being awful. So
yeah, and if you're rest of Central, you have to worry about that. He's been horrible. They've been adjusting to Doug Fister moving on to the Nationals, and yet there Detroit is in first place.
Matt, the quote of the weekend, I was at St. Mary's, Ontario, Canadian baseball inductions, chatting with Tim Wallach. I asked him, he's a bench coach with the Dodgers. I said, how in the world do you coach Yasiel Puig?
Oh.
And he said, when you figure it out, let me know.
That's you know what? First off, that is a great quote. There's an interesting thing with Yasiel Puig, and I was listening to Tony Kornheiser talk about this. And remember this year he came into camp a little out of shape.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's just because he's not used to living in a country with such abundance.
Right.
In America. And Kornheiser cited all these tennis players from Eastern European nations. When they would come over to the United States, they'd immediately gain 20, 25 pounds. And he said that just, you're not used to if you're coming from Cuba or if you're coming from a lot of other nations where you just don't have the level of excess. And here's the thing about Puig in the end. Everyone wants that fine line. We want him to have a bit of that wild, crazy side, but yet you want a little bit more structure to his game. And that's always going to be the tough thing. But who's not rooting for him to have 15 years of a successful career?
Yeah, that's a fair point as well. CFL the teams made their cuts, Matt.
What happened to Jamal Richardson?
Here in Montreal. Well, what
happened?
Here's a tweet. Our good friend, our co-friend, Mo Khan, asked Jim Pop a whole bunch of questions on Twitter today. And Stefano, if you could, find and read that quote, Jim Pop essentially answering Mo doing an interview in public, essentially on Twitter, asking Jim Pop specifically about Jamel Richardson. And Stefano, what was the quote that Pop had?
Well, Jim Pop tweeted that we offered Jamel a guaranteed contract with rehab, and he opted out. So basically saying it was Jamel's Richardson's decision.
Okay, well, you know what? That's a fair point. If that happened, I'd say right now
it's going to be a pay cut, obviously, but
yeah, and that's the point. How much of a pay cut was it going to be? You know what? I don't want to go on a long rant about just loyalty in sports because it works both ways. I root for every player to get as much money as they can, and I also root for owners to have a structure that works for them as well. But it's just going to be weird not having Richardson with Montreal. And I say this as an Argo fan that was usually terrified, 2 years ago. I remember 2 or 3 years ago, I was the number one best player in the league. But it's odd to see him gone. And did Jim Pop, did he have any say in this decision? Because he didn't have any say in the hiring of the head coach. So
ouch. But Matt,
Pop spent all his time on Twitter? What's going on?
Matt, the interesting thing here is Richardson's still not ready. He's still got a rehab. And, not willing to take a pay cut is either the pay cut was really, really bad or, it's just a prideful thing for him. But at the end of the day, this is, everyone's talking about how Ottawa's quite competitive, but they're lacking a little bit at receiver. Wouldn't he be a perfect guy to bring in, let him some rehab and tutor some of those young receivers?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, clearly Ottawa's not going for a youth movement when they got Henry Burris playing quarterback for him. Actually, that's a really good call. And they've got Siobhan Walker, who's done very little in his career, but every time I see him, he would rip off an 80-yard play. Former Hamilton Ticat running back. He's a guy that I have an irrational obsession over. But I'd love to see him go to Ottawa. Of course, my thing is I'm rooting for Henry Burris to set the CFL record for interceptions. I really think it's gonna happen. Like when you just think about the fact that they're going to be down in games and they're not going to be running the ball and Burris is the only guy there. They're like, screw it, throw it 60 times. Don't worry about it. He's going to have like so many 400-yard, 5 INT games. I'm so excited for Ottawa this year.
Killer uniforms, though. I love them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Killer uniforms. The name, I'm still not buying the name.
Awful name.
It feels like a soccer. It feels like a soccer thing. And nothing against soccer, but let soccer be soccer and let football be football. And, not a big fan of the name.
No, me neither. And I saw somebody I think the team itself tweeting a shortened version of the name, or, a hashtag. I think it was R-Blacks. That's awful.
God.
How about just RBs? Seeing as there's, I don't know, a running back in football, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, this is CFL, unless it's John Cornish, who gets the ball more than 8 times.
Fair enough.
So, yeah.
TSN, Matthew, he is not.
No.
Cauz 56 on Twitter. Of course, Macco and Cauz on TSN 1050 in the mornings. And CFL.ca, when are you back?
Well, first column is coming out. I wrote the first draft, just sitting here this morning, staring at the glorious lake, doing a preview of all the teams where I put their Bodog odds of winning the Grey Cup and explain why you need to invest all your money and why they'll win, and also why it'd be ridiculous to take that bet. That column should be up before the Argo-Winnipeg game on Thursday.
Perfect.
And actually, I'm going to be in Daytona Beach for a wedding.
Of course you are.
I wonder, will I be able to watch Toronto and Winnipeg? Will I be able to find a sports bar in Daytona on Thursday night? Do they have Drew Willie fever? That's the question.
Shouldn't the question be why you're not planning on watching it on your phone with TSN Mobile?
To do that.
Yeah.
I see all the. Okay, here's one other thing. What's with all these tweets with people putting flags of countries for World Cup tweets? How do you do that? I look at my phone. I can capitalize a letter. That's all I can do. I'm angry at these tweets because they're shaming me about their ability to do all these fancy things that I can't do.
Oh, Matt, at least your phone will be working, hopefully. That's the key.
Right? You know what? That's also never a guarantee.
Thanks, Matt.
Hey, absolutely. You guys have a great rest of the show.
There you go. That's Matt Cauz from TSN 1050 in Toronto. 4:48 here on TSN 690. I promise I won't try and speak French the rest of the show. It's Game Points with Matthew Ross, Stefano Micella here, Stéphane Hamel on the board as well. Up next, NFL news and notes, including one quarterback battle that's already over. A team has declared him as the starting quarterback. I can't get enough of this story. What? Who wins a quarterback battle in June? And he's not a good quarterback. We'll talk about that next.